All right, so we're going to talk about the structure part of plant form and function. So plant forms, we're going to describe general features, and we're mostly going to deal with vascular plants here. So we're going to describe the structures of the shoot system, which includes the vascular bundles with xylem and phloem, leaves, and the stem. And then we'll describe the structure of roots, including apical meristems, root caps, and root hairs. So remember, plants are eukaryotes. They are multicellular eukaryotes with tissues and organs, but they differ from animals in that they lack nerve tissue, muscle tissue. They also have, in addition to what animals have, is they have rigid cell walls of cellulose, and some parts of the plant will have chloroplasts. Okay, so the types of plant tissue, and these plant tissues are organized into a shoot system and a root system. The shoot system is designed to get the plant exposed to sunlight so photosynthesis can occur, usually in the leaves, but sometimes also in the stem. And then it also will carry the reproductive parts, the flower and the fruit. And then it will contain, inside the stem usually and extending to the leaves, it'll contain the vascular tissues. Xylem that carries water and ions from the roots to the leaves, and phloem, which will carry dissolved sugars and other organic molecules to other parts of the plant, in particular the roots. These xylem and phloems are made up of different types of cells that form tubes, and then there's the movement through the tubes. Both the leaves and the stem are surrounded by epidermis. In the leaves, this is involved in gas exchange and protecting the plant. In the stem, it's involved in forming the bark. Okay, and in both the stem and in the root, you have ground tissues. These include the supporting cells that are going to form the structural part of the plant, and in the root, these will contain cells that will store energy. Okay, and the root will contain epidermis as well, but here it's going to be involved in water uptake and the uptake of some nutrients. When we talk about stem components, the stems contain nodes for the attachment of leaves, sometimes branching of aerial roots and flowers. The internode region is the stem component between nodes. And then when a leaf branches off, you have a petiole. Okay, the stems grow in several ways. They grow from the apical portion, or apical bud, or apical meristem, which is the tip of the stem and contains one of the most rapidly growing parts. But they also have axillary buds, which leaves branch off of. And then there's also lateral meristems that will produce growth in width. Here's a cross section through a stem, and you see different types of cells there. Parenchyma cells are undifferentiated. They contain various, structures like cell wall, things like that. The collenchyma cells are thickened and structural support. They will form sometimes conducting cells as well. And then you'll have the sclerenchyma, which, in addition to having the regular cell wall, they will have a secondary cell wall. So these provide more strength, and these are often involved in the xylem and phloem structures. We'll get a closer look at these guys here. They're at uneven thickness and can become quite rigid so that the cell wall itself is capable of holding up the cell. Here's a look at xylem and phloem. These are the vascular tissues that are arranged in discrete vascular bundles. The dicots, the vascular bundles, are arranged in rings. And here the xylem is the red portion, and the phloem tissue is green. Okay, and it's between the xylem and the cortex, the outer part. Okay, xylem tissue itself is tubes called tracheids that are connected end to end. These allow more water to move, and then vessel elements. And so you have a plate there that separates them, and water can move up these systems by cohesion. evaporation or transpiration from the leaves will draw water up, and because water wants to follow water, it's cohesive, it will come up these thin tubes. And so these tubes can't be too thick. And so here you see vascular bundles in dicot and monocot stems. In dicot stems, they're usually arranged in these would be like a fleshy plant. It's arranged in a ring around the edge of the plant. In monocots, it's more of a random arrangement. Phloem tissue is generally close to the xylem tissue. These are usually sieve tubes and companion cells. And in this case, you're going to have organic substances, sugars, amino acids, starches, things like that, that are generally moving down from the leaves where they're made to other places where they're used. This is going to take energy because we're moving sugars through cell membranes and cell walls. Okay, then the root systems. There's two main types of root systems. Taproot systems have a main single root that grows down large and then gives off lateral roots like shown here. And in fibrous root systems, you have many, many small roots all branching from a single place. In root systems, you generally have an outer layer of cells, the epidermis, and it functions to protect the plant from pathogens entering, and it also is going to absorb water and nutrients. These epidermal cells will have very fine extensions, finger-like extensions that are quite small, but give them a lot of surface area so that they can absorb water. So here you see a diagram, a cross-section through the root, and you can see the cells lined up there. There is the vascular bundles continue down, so there's a core of cylinder of vascular tissue that runs down the root. Okay, and near the base of the root, there's this apical meristem. That's where root growth occurs. And then there's some tough cells covering that delicate apical meristem, and so that allows it to grow. At a cross section through the root, you can see the vascular tissue. In dicots, this is arranged in an X, and it contains, again, both xylem and phloem. In monocots, it's kind of like a ring-like structure with xylem at the center and phloem arranged around it. Okay. And so that's a diagram. Here's an actual picture of it. And you can see again here are stained cells. I think the phloem cells are blue and the xylem cells are red. And so you can see those there in the core. Roots are also, because roots are, they're absorbing some nutrients, but not all. They have an inner endodermis, a layer of cells surrounding the vascular tissue, and this allows water and the desired solutes to cross the plasma membrane of these cells, and assures only the ones that the plant wants. So this prevents toxic materials and pathogens from entering this root system. Let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, I have a little bit about leaf, and I should have had this up there with the shoot system. The leaves are generally very, very thin, and they have both an upper and a lower epidermis. And then you have a center area called the mesohyle. And in the mesohyle are two areas of parenchyma, and these are the areas where photosynthesis occurs. There's also passageways through the epidermis called stoma, and these are surrounded by guard cells to allow them to be opened and closed, and that allows carbon dioxide to enter. The plant cells need carbon dioxide, and then as a waste product, they produce oxygen, and so you can see oxygen leaving. I have a nice little picture of these guard cells. They can open and close, and that has to do with how much water is available in them. And so when they swell up and close, they prevent water from leaving, but it also doesn't let oxygen escape and carbon dioxide enter. Okay, so the next program we'll go over plant function, and we'll talk about plant responses.